Dear friends, I'm Dr. Craig Schindler, revolutionofthespirit.org. My book is entitled Choose Hope, You Matter, The 8 Wisdom Keys. In 1906, Mahatma Gandhi designed the term satyagraha, which is from the Sanskrit meaning satya, truth, love, soul, and graha, meaning force or power. So the term is soul force, love force. And Dr. King's quote summarized soul force as follows: our goal is to create the beloved community. And this will require an inner change in the quality of our soul and an outer change in the quantity of our compassionate action. The 8 wisdom keys are the practice to implement soul force, love force in our lives. And the 8 wisdom keys are as follows. 1, awakening soul. Shift from small self to big self. You know that place in all of us that feels like we are not enough? The place that feels like there's a void inside us, where we hear our inner critic saying we can't possibly live our higher purpose, and we try to fill our lives with things, with material things, with busyness. Many of my clients use the word frenzy as we speed along in the constant chase. The small self is reactive. The small self is based in fear, and the small self believes that we are not enough. Every moment that we take a conscious breath, try it with me now, just take a deep breath, and shift from that space of not enoughness into big self, we come alive and we connect with our higher purpose. Big self is the witnessing consciousness. You might think about the photo album of your life or the online version of that where you see all the pictures from when you're 5 and then 10 and then graduating from high school and then getting married and then having children. Notice who it is that's looking out from behind your eyes from every single photograph. That witnessing consciousness is what I would call a soul. An awakening to the soul is the first key. St. Francis of Assisi puts it like this. He says, the one you're looking for is the one who's looking. So the one looking out from behind our eyes is that big self. Now the great souls tell us that we live in 2 different realms. We live in the horizontal realm of linear time, where we're going from birth to death, and we're speeding along in all the events of our lives. And at every single moment when we slow down, when we take a conscious breath, when we connect with our body, we connect with the timeless. And the timeless is the vertical realm. So there's the vertical realm and the horizontal realm. And when first key is to awaken to the soul and connect with that sense of timeless, witnessing, transcendent self. The second key, mindful being, cultivating mindfulness in body, mind, and spirit, is to apply that awareness to our lives. In other words, to live from an awakened space where mindfulness is the most essential practice. Because without mindfulness, we cannot cross that bridge over to the flowering of the human spirit. Without being awake and coming out of the trance of small self, the trance of not enoughness. So mindfulness is about taking care of your body, exercising, caring for your body. It's about taking care of your mind, opening, learning, growing your mind. F. Scott Fitzgerald says the test of true intelligence is the ability to hold more than one point of view at the same time and function effectively, to practice open inquiry. And mindfulness applied to the spirit has to do with creativity, with music, with art, with whatever it is that you love to do that takes you into joy. That's the second key, mindful being. The third key is infinite source, open to the timeless now. However you conceive of the higher power, however you name that which is the greater in this life, this practice is about seeking your source every day, finding ways in your life to drop in and seek your source. In 1955, Dr. Martin Luther King was the young minister who became nationally famous for being the spokesperson for the Montgomery bus boycott. After he became famous, he started to get calls from what he called our sick brothers and sisters threatening his life and the life of his family. One night he got a call late at night from someone who threatened to kill him and his family, and he went into despair. And he said to himself, I cannot do this anymore. I want out. And he went into his kitchen and he poured himself a cup of coffee and he put his head on the table and he prayed and he asked for help. And he felt this sense of the divine presence. And out of that sense of the divine presence, he felt courage. However you connect with the source, it is essential to have courage. And he says, whether you believe in a personal being or whether you believe in the ground of being or whether you believe in some kind of infinite sense of the universe, he says, we are not alone. We are sustained by, quote unquote, our cosmic companionship. This is 1955, and Dr. King is talking about our cosmic companionship. And what he means is that the moral arc of the universe bends towards love and justice. The moral arc of the universe. So when we are aligned with the moral arc of the universe, we feel a sense of the greater power, the source, the infinite presence, helping us to become part of the gathering light. The fourth key is compassionate heart. To love self, to love others, and to love all living beings. A quick story. A client of mine told me that she was going to practice this presence for 1 week of seeing the divine in everyone. She came back at the end of a week and I said, how did it go? And she said, well, I was able to see the divine in every single person and every creature I encountered except one. And I said, who was the one? She said, well, it was a little 4-year-old girl with curls. And she says, I just found that little girl repulsive. And I said, well, why was that? And she said, I don't know. And so I asked her to close her eyes and to tell me about what she looked like when she was 4 years old. And she began to cry. And she said, well, that little girl is how I looked when I was 4 years old. And she repulsed me because I believed that I was not enough and I did not feel love from people around me. And at that moment, she realized that she could embrace that part of herself and have a compassionate heart for herself. And then you extend that compassionate heart to all other beings, and especially as well to the living earth, which leads us to key 5, sacred earth. We live on this small, small, beautiful planet in a vast ocean of space. It is so beautiful. Creation is so exquisite. The clouds, the sky, the mountains, the rivers, all the creatures we live. And we must care for that earth because right now there is the threat of our extinction and we are extincting thousands of species. And so this practice, sacred earth, is stewardship for our living planet. Which leads me now to the 6th key, peaceful warrior. Making peace within yourself and with all beings. When the Dalai Lama comes into the room, if any of you have ever seen him, he comes in laughing and bowing until he gets up there. And I like to think that he's laughing and bowing because he gets the joke. Because he sees that the divine is in everyone. He sees that the light of consciousness is in everyone. And he knows that if for one moment he were to stop and say, yo, I'm the Dalai Lama, in that moment his ego would emerge and he would not be the Dalai Lama. Peace is about relaxing into who we are, into our timeless soul. Or as Mother Teresa said when approached by a reporter, she said after she won the Nobel Prize, this young woman came up to her and said, "Mother Teresa, who could possibly replace you?" And Mother Teresa didn't miss a beat. She said, "Why, anyone, dear. Would you like to replace me?" The timeless soul is right there in each of us. And when we go to the practice of slowing down with the breath and experiencing who we are, we feel that peace within. And then the practice is to make peace with everyone in your life from your side of things. We're not in charge of what they do, but you can make peace with every single person in your life. And then you become a peaceful warrior for creating the conditions for peace on earth. Now, if you're practicing these 6 wisdom keys, it brings us to key 7, radiant spirit. Every great wisdom tradition tells us that there is a flowering of the human spirit where we get to live more and more of the time in touch with the vertical, with the timeless. And that is the practice of presence, the practice of letting the light come through you. And it is joyful, it is fulfilling, it is really what we all want, to come into our own fulfillment of living our higher purpose in this life. Finally, we get to key 8, the soul force revolution. And this takes us back to Gandhi and King and the teaching about satyagraha, soul force, truth force, love force, that when each one of us steps forward and says, in my life, I will be a light. In my life, I will do my part to create the gathering light, to live the great turning. We become part of the tens of millions of people who are stepping up right now to live with soul force and to create a revolution of the human spirit that takes us across the bridge into the flowering of the human spirit, where the future becomes magnificent, because each one of us is magnificent. Dr. Craig Schindler, revolutionofthespirit.org.